So we're gonna turn back to Kassia, who I think we're gonna have share screen now. But Wendy and Nick, thank you guys so much for sharing. And I think we're gonna follow up with you and find a way to do your full poll.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Kassia, I'm turning back presenter to you to see if we can hear you now.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yay, we can hear you now.
Well,
Yay.
This is great because my topic is resiliency, and clearly that's what I've had to show today.
Yeah.
All right, but my webcam is still not working, unfortunately. So I tried my best, but clearly, as Wendy said, there's some of us who are having some technical challenges today. So what I wanted to talk about today, my name is Kassia Kukurudza, for those of you who I haven't met before. I work for D2L, and I'm the manager for our customer success K-12 team in North America. I'm a former classroom educator myself. I moved into working for private education companies about 5 years ago, and I can say it's been a really fascinating year to look at kind of the experiences that my former colleagues are having in the classroom, the experiences that my partners with across school districts in North America are having in the classroom, and the experiences that myself and my other partners in the kind of education company sphere are having. And what I really wanted to spend a bit of time today to close out was just around resiliency and some of the major themes that we have seen and some of the major findings that we've had while we've worked with districts across America as they look at really, I think, one of the most impactful changes we've ever seen in K-12 education. So for those of you who aren't aware of D2L or you don't know what that is, we are an educational technology company, and we really deliver two things. So we deliver the product, the technology that creates online classroom spaces, but then we also deliver the partnership and the consulting around how you effectively use technology to solution and support learning. And it's been an interesting journey for the company this year because we've been around for 20 years, and one of our biggest missions and really our driving force has been digital transformations and how do we transform the way the world learns. And we've had this mapping that we've been building out for years now around digital transformations that we've seen across K-12 education systems worldwide, and kind of a timeline of where we expect to see really strong digital transformations and moves to online learning or moves to more technology-based learning in classrooms. And what we've seen with COVID this year has just been an absolute crunching of that timeline down to a year or two, with districts and teachers and schools trying to make changes and trying to adopt technology in very, very condensed and fast ways. And that's really exciting to watch, but has created extreme questions and challenges around how do we manage that change as educators? How do we manage that change as educational leaders? How do we manage that change as educational business partners? And how do we support resiliency? And to call back to Steve's presentation, how do we look at this as the beginning of an evolution of learning and not as something that we just have to deal with today and then move on from? So I wanted to share, I work across really North America, and I've been working with education leaders and district leaders as well as teachers for the past several years, but particularly this year, looking at what did allow them to be more successful in reducing learning loss and managing change during COVID, and what were the themes of success that we saw. And I'm going to run through kind of the main three that I've seen, because you can imagine this research is pages and pages and hours of conversations, but there was really three main themes that we saw. So the first one is online learning. I think that the takeaway that we've all had here is, in some format, technology and online learning needs to be a part of business continuity plans for our education systems. What we saw during COVID and in the early responses to COVID was districts and schools that already had a strong central foundation that allowed them to use technology as a tool, not the solution, but a tool to pivot, were better able to support students and learning more quickly and more effectively than those who didn't have that kind of continuity plan already in place. For example, I've worked with one district in the Atlanta area where they've had an inclement weather plan for years now, where if they have an inclement weather event, they move to digital learning days. And that has always been, or that has been for years, their plan in order to support learning regardless of what's going on in the outside world. When COVID hit, it took them a couple of days to pivot that plan to be able to support learning, but they were able to adjust very quickly. Other districts were at different stages of that journey, and other schools were at different stages of that journey and weren't able to pivot quite as quickly to some of the closures that we saw in the spring and are starting to see again now across North America. But the biggest kind of success factors that we saw across schools and districts that were able to create really quick or employ really quickly their business continuity plans were three main things. One was this change management and growth mindset vision. So what we saw was districts that had this culture of growth mindset, had this culture of we can embrace change and we can weather the storm and we can be flexible, were better able to support their students and their parents in engaging and learning than those districts that hadn't done the work to set up those kind of mentalities and ways of dealing with change. Another main factor that we saw was teacher choice and flexible platforms was absolutely critical for success. So if as a school district or as a school, we had a flexible technology foundation, and what I mean by that is something where we weren't focused on single tools or we weren't focused on single workflows, but we were focused on what's effective teaching and what does that look like across all different models of teaching, online versus hybrid versus face-to-face. Those were the districts that were able to pivot when we had that rapid change happening of, okay, schools are open, now schools are closed, now we're online, now we're hybrid. And another key kind of success factor or indicator we saw within that bucket was those districts that really respected teacher voice and that kind of teacher pedagogical lens were also more successful. And then the final part of this overall theme of business continuity was we saw that districts who realized that teachers need change management built into their professional development. Teachers need to be met where they are in the same way that students do, and they need that professional learning in order to support them in not just learning tools and technology, but learning how to effectively teach with tools and technology. Those districts were more successful and more able to reduce learning loss during the early stages of COVID-19. Another major theme that we saw was that schools do need and districts do need one holistic plan for online learning. If we think back to how technology really was rolled out across some of our states 4 or 5 years ago, there really was this kind of mentality around, I call it the Wild West, but really just like grassroots. We want teachers to adopt what teachers want to adopt. We want to be inclusive of all types of technology. We want to use the tools that teachers are using to meet them where they're at. What we saw happen with COVID-19 and the need to all of a sudden do more holistic shifts to technology-based learning was this is not actually a scalable model. The districts that were able to create one holistic platform that plugged in other tools, that had one place for teachers, students, and parents to come, were the districts that were more successful in having their parents and students of all types be able to engage in learning. What we saw was if there wasn't a strong central plan for here is how we engage with learners in a virtual way or in a hybrid or a blended way, we started to leave learners behind, particularly those learners that were from the most vulnerable families. Districts that pulled together a central space for their learners in an online kind of method and were able to build true virtual learning or true hybrid learning were better able to engage and focus in on those other types of learners. And then the final theme, and I know we're running a bit long now because I had some technical challenges, but our final theme that we learned was that if we had that central space, if we had that resiliency and change management mindset, the last thing that we needed to consider, and really it became the forefront of our minds then because we had the foundation to do this, was we needed to create student experiences that considered all ages, all learning types, all abilities, all teachers. And we've talked about it a lot today, and I've heard it from so many of you throughout the day around this pandemic and this experience we've gone through has shone a light on the inequities that already existed within our systems. And that has been really difficult. But it has also been a really good thing for us to stop and think about as an education system around where are our inequities and how do we work through this and how do we set up something and set up a system that's going to be resilient and enable really all learners. And those districts that we saw who were able to really create platforms or experiences or teaching methods that considered that universal design, that learning for all, were far more able to support their learners and their growth. So I know I've run through that quite quickly, but I did want to respect our time today. But overall, the main thing that I wanted to talk about today was we have seen a lot of change. We have seen a lot of resilience across the education systems. I've heard from all of you today, and I know how difficult it has been over the last almost a year now to really support our learning. In order to truly get there, I think we all need to, and what our research has shown is we all need to really look at change management, look at the fact that we need to take these learnings and move forward, and really start to look as well around how we enable not only our leaders, but also our educators, because those are the people that are going to go out and ensure that our students are being successful. We do have a discussion paper on this that really gets deeper into this. So I've linked it through here, but if you just go to d2l.com/K12, there's a great discussion paper that goes deeper into how you can build those resiliency systems within that foundation of your school districts and schools, and then what that creates for you in terms of business continuity.
Okay. All right. So thank you. Thank you very much for that, Kassia. And I want to mention one other thing about D2L that I like a lot. And I don't know if you've said this before already, but as an offering, it's world class, but less expensive. So I just want to mention that, because if people are out there with budget issues, I know there's a lot of offerings in your space, but they're not as high level pro grade at the same amount of money. So just wanted to make that mention, Kassia.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I would say the other piece too there is it pulls together so much. So it is far less expensive to find something that is holistic as opposed to go out and purchase individual tools that do individual things. And just from a scalability perspective and a teacher enablement perspective, it just works a little bit better is what we found.
Yep, I totally agree.